What if I told you that in 1969, the United States Army managed to destroy its own airbase without the enemy firing a single shot? I am talking about a disaster so costly, so humiliating, and so preventable that it makes modern military budgets look insignificant. Picture a tower of cash, 80 feet tall, and then imagine setting it ablaze. That is what happened at Da Nang. But that is not even the real scandal. The true scandal is not the millions of dollars that burned. It is about the 5 men observing from the jungle, while the Pentagon lost a fortune in a single afternoon. A small team of Australian ghosts was dismantling the Viet Cong at virtually no cost. Why did the U.S. Army ignore the answer right in front of them? Why did they construct targets instead of weapons? And why has this comparison been treated like a forbidden topic for decades? Stay with me, because in the next 10 minutes, we will open the files on the $20 million mistake. I will show you the map that reveals how American logistics became a death trap. I will show you the Australian method that embarrassed senior commanders. And by the end, you will never see the Vietnam War the same way again. The fuse is burning. Let us watch what follows. It was 10 in the morning on April 27, 1969, and the air above Da Nang Air Base shimmered with suffocating heat that felt heavy in the lungs. This was not just a base. It was an industrial city of war, carved into the Vietnamese landscape, roaring with phantom jets and rumbling supply trucks. To the thousands stationed there, its massive size projected total invulnerability, a belief that nothing could penetrate. Miles of barbed wire and overlapping fields of fire. Technicians with grease-stained hands wiped sweat away as they serviced aircraft worth millions, while logistics officers inside air-conditioned trailers recorded endless columns of supplies, flowing in like a river of steel and explosives. It seemed like an ordinary Sunday defined by routine maintenance and confidence in overwhelming firepower. No one noticed a small patch of dry elephant grass near ammunition supply point 1, where a thin wisp of white smoke curled upward. That faint smoke was the only warning before everything changed. At first, it looked harmless, like a discarded cigarette. The men at the dump stood beside the greatest concentration of conventional weapons on Earth. Yet, their attention stayed on clipboards instead of the sun-baked vegetation they guarded. A stockpile whose value exceeded the national income of entire countries. Yet the most dangerous force that morning was not a Viet Cong sapper, but a simple chemical reaction in the dirt. The most powerful military on Earth had fortified itself against external threats, yet forgotten the most basic enemy. As the temperature climbed past 100 degrees, the small fire crept toward wooden pallets, stacked with devastation unnoticed by thousands who believed they were secure. 300 miles south, in the humidity of Phuoc Thu province, a completely different war unfolded. No air-conditioned trailers, no cold drinks, no illusion of safety for 5 men moving silently through dense bamboo. This was an Australian Special Air Service patrol, and their reality was worlds apart from the comfort of Da Nang. They smelled of rotting vegetation and stale sweat, deliberately masking human scent. Everything they needed rested on aching backs, sustained by minimal rations and iodine-treated water that tasted bitter with every sip. While Americans measured power in tonnage and decibels, these Australians measured strength in silence and invisibility, sometimes taking an hour to move 100 yards. The contrast could not have been sharper. On one side stood a $50 million stockpile, exposed beneath open sky, managed by an army convinced it could overwhelm rebellion with supplies. On the other side, 5 men with painted faces and worn boots operating on a budget that would not buy a spare tire for an American truck, yet achieving results the Pentagon barely understood. They relied on census discipline and professionalism, turning themselves into feared hunters. They were not waiting for resupply. They were the weapon inserted deep into enemy territory, without a safety net. This is not simply a story about a fire. It is about a philosophy that misunderstood the conflict entirely. It was a clash between American faith in mass and an Australian mastery of precision. What happened? That April day was not random. It exposed a systemic flaw that cost millions within hours and humiliated leadership worldwide. We are uncovering a scandal buried for decades. The richest army on earth defeated itself without enemy fire while underfunded. Commandos demonstrated a different way to fight the $20 million. Mistake proved that bigger is not always better and can become fatal. The smoke rising over Da Nang signaled the funeral of an outdated strategy, yet the warning went unheeded too. Understand how such vulnerability existed. We must see through the eyes of Pentagon planners. The vast stockpiles were driven by industrial logic. The United States fought a high-intensity war over 10,000 miles from home, requiring a supply chain across the Pacific supporting more than 500,000 troops. Everything had to be imported from tank engines to toilet paper. General William Westmoreland pursued attrition, believing victory would come by grinding the enemy down, but such a machine required endless fuel, ammunition, and steel. Engineers built fortified cities with paved roads, power grids, deep water ports, and huge airfields. The idea was simple: build high walls, fill them with firepower, and create safety in hostile jungle. They tried to tame chaos with concrete, and mountains of supplies. Long Bend Post embodied this excess. 90 massive bunkers filled with artillery shells, millions of rifle rounds, and crates of grenades stacked endlessly. The value in one postal code exceeded the GDP of developing nations. To American generals, it symbolized strength. To Viet Cong scouts, it was the ultimate target. Concentrating so much value in one place created opportunity for devastating loss with minimal effort. It was a gamble, assuming the enemy would not strike at the heart. Supplies arrived faster than safe storage could be built. Ships unloaded thousands of tons daily. There was not enough concrete, time, or manpower for hardened bunkers. Commanders chose speed over safety, stacking overflow ammunition in open fields beneath the tropical sun. Volatile explosives sat on wooden pallets, separated by air. Bureaucratic calculation accepted the risk to keep supply lines efficient, creating conditions where one spark could ignite a chain reaction beyond control. At 10:15, the inevitable occurred. The creeping grass fire reached white phosphorus munitions known as Willie. Peat burning at 5,000 degrees and unstoppable by water. The first blast tore the sky apart, sending shockwaves across the base, knocking men down half a mile away, rupturing eardrums before they heard the sound. Burning phosphorus arced through the air, trailing toxic smoke raining onto surrounding stacks. The dump became a chemical furnace, consuming oxygen. Melting steel, incinerating wood. Panic spread as black smoke rose. Technicians dropped tools, drivers abandoned trucks. The illusion of safety vanished. Chain reactions followed. One stack detonated, hurling flaming debris into the next, triggering explosion. After explosion, orderly rows became chaos. For 24 hours, Da Nang transformed from airbase to disaster zone. Marines dove into bunkers. Pilots scrambled jets into the sky before shockwaves could shred them. The base was paralyzed, not by enemy divisions, but by its own excess. Fires lit the jungle for miles as millions in taxpayer money vanished in orange flashes. This catastrophe illustrated a strategic trap. To fight a war of consumption required enormous stockpiles. Once amassed, they became liabilities, demanding defense. The enemy operated differently, distributing supplies in small hidden caches. Losing one was minor. Losing an American dump halted entire operations. The Americans stored war in fragile jars, while the enemy embedded it in earth. Among burning pallets sat the BLU-82 Daisy Cutter bombs, 15,000 pounds each, containing 12,600 pounds of GSX explosive capable of flattening jungle and liquefying organs hundreds of yards away. If one detonated on open ground, it could erase large Sections of the base shatter windows across Da Nang City and compromise bunkers, sheltering thousands. For hours, the fate of the installation depended on steel casings resisting heat. It was Russian roulette with the most powerful non-nuclear weapons. On Earth, miraculously, they did not detonate, but the psychological damage was done. While engineers counted losses, 5 Australian SAS soldiers moved quietly toward extraction after 10 days unseen. They had fired no shots, dropped no bombs, yet returned with detailed maps of enemy resupply routes, bunker coordinates, porter counts, weapon types, and guard routines. This intelligence enabled precise artillery strikes, using minimal shells, achieving objectives at a fraction of the cost lost at Da Nang. The math was humiliating. 5 men with radios achieved more than massive bombing campaigns. Their success prompts the enduring question: if the method was safer, cheaper, and more effective, why did the U.S. Army not adopt it widely? The answer lies in bureaucracy and institutional ego. The military functioned like an industrial corporation, where growth mattered more than efficiency. Small elite teams did not generate large defense contracts or massive procurement success in reducing expenditure. Threatened budgets, promotions favored commanders managing huge forces and billion-dollar hubs, not lean shadow units. The system rewarded consumption as proof of effort regardless of strategic results. Became culture, unused artillery allocations. Risked future cuts, so shells were fired into empty jungle to keep numbers high. Depots overflowed, creating targets. The logistics tail wagged the operational dog. Meanwhile, the Viet Cong exploited this addiction, understanding that attack in supply depots inflicted disproportionate pain. A few mortar rounds could destroy millions in equipment and force thousands into guard duty each. Explosion sent a message that walls could not protect them. The cycle repeated at the port of Off, Quy Nhon, where in 1971 enemy sappers destroyed the same depot 3 times within months. Each time it was rebuilt in the same location with more concrete and more ammunition, only to be destroyed again. It became a symbol of insanity, massive effort, limitless resources. Repeated failure because strategy remained unchanged. Deep in Phuoc 2, 5 SAS soldiers observed a major Viet Cong resupply column. An American unit might have called B-52 bombers or launched large air assaults costing millions and alerting the enemy. Instead, the patrol leader whispered coordinates. A single artillery battery fired with precision, guided by eyes on the ground. One shell struck the lead truck, another the command group, another the ammunition carriers. The column was dismantled with a few dozen shells worth thousands, not millions. No bases destroyed, no aircraft lost, no massive depots required. The lesson was clear in the jungle. The scalpel outperformed the sledgehammer. The $20 million mistake at Da Nang was the price of valuing size over intelligence and spending over thought. The giant earned its own fortune, while the ghosts slipped away untouched, having shown how the war could have been fought differently.